Welcome to another episode of Investing in Intellectual Property with Dave. Today we have a very special guest with us. This gentleman has built his law firm from the ground up. He's argued in front of the highest court in the land in the state of Michigan, and he has numerous trademarks to take his brand to the next level. Please help me welcome Attorney Michael Oakes. How's it going?
Going well.
Well, this has been in the works for a minute, so I'm glad to be able to get you on to talk about. I know we was talking offline, and we'll get off into later about Diddy and the situation that he got himself in or finds himself in at this point. But again, starting with you, and just kind of really want to dive right into things. What made you, as an attorney, decide to because you have built your law practice from the ground up. That started over 10 plus years ago. So what made you go this route as opposed to the route of, I'm gonna just work for a law firm and kind of work my way up to be a partner with the law firm? Was it anything specifically like experiences or whatnot? Or since the beginning, have you always wanted to have your own law firm?
Yeah. No, I never didn't start off wanting to have my own law firm. I think it was more so just the Lord and his guidance. Cause again, me coming out the top of my class, forever, getting the grades, law review, everything else. I just visualized myself working at someone's firm. I'm a great writer, so always just visualize myself working in a firm, reading and writing briefs, operating in the back room. But the thing that more so switched it up for me was when I was working for a firm, making great money, I did not have time. So at that point, I didn't have kids, didn't have a wife, and knew there was no way I was going to be able to hold down a job at a firm with the demands of that firm and still have a life. So I most value my time. So I made a decision to hang up my own shingles and get to grinding.
So when you say you didn't have time, was it anything in particular that you were looking to do, like outside of that you wanted to do, and just said, man, I just don't have time for that? Or did you kind of want to see yourself as like an investor outside of work? Because I know for me, even though I'm an attorney, man, I'm big into real estate, so it's important for me to still be able to kind of do that, as well as, this podcast and other things that I have going on. So was it anything specifically that you were looking to do at that point in time that you just couldn't find yourself to do and said, okay, I need to kind of make a change? Or did you just kind of project forward and say, man, I don't even got time to just do just regular things, and I don't even have a family, so once I get a family, it's going to even be no less time that I have to do whatever?
Right, most definitely. And so what it was in thinking about future. So I try to plan steps ahead. So in looking at the fact that I was pretty much expected to be in the office by 7 a.m. and not to leave the office until after 6:30. So then I have a commute. At that time, I was in the Detroit area. So then I would have a commute to and from. And I recognized there was no way I was going to be able to hold down this job and be active in my kids' lives. And again, at that time, I had no kids, but I knew I had a desire for children.
Right.
But in thinking ahead, I realized going down that path, there was no way I was going to be able to have any type of outside life for a number of years. And so speaking to others, they were saying, well, once you make your way up the ranks, you get more freedom, have more time, have more flexibility. But at that time, I'm roughly 27 and feeling I know I want to have kids by the time I turn 30, and I'm not willing to sacrifice their earlier years and saying that I was just at work.
Got you. No, that makes sense. So were you was this like you were a full time, or was it like, okay, you was in school and maybe doing what do they call them these days? Not the externship, but like a law clerk or summer associate position. Were you a
Yeah.
summer associate when you came to that
Yeah.
realization, or were you like full time in practice?
A summer associate.
Okay, okay, yeah, no, hey, that makes definitely sense. So then you fast forward, you graduate law school, and did you kind of read a book or kind of talk to other attorneys who have their own law practice and start just to get the ins and the outs or the do's and the don'ts of I guess building a practice?
Um, I did not. So it was I have a hustle inside of me, and once I graduated law school, I had business cards made and kept them on the shelf until the bar results came out. And once the bar results came out, I was on and running. So at that time, I started off grinding out of my house. So I was meeting clients at the local McDonald's, Burger King, wherever. I'm pulling up on you. So once I got a license to practice, yeah, they just opened the door for me. I didn't stop.
So with the when you were in the summer associate position, were you doing criminal stuff or was it more so corporate? Because I'm see like at the beginning, at some point it was a switch to criminal. So was it always okay? I'm a be a criminal, and that's what I was doing at these summer associate positions. Or at some point did you say, okay, just criminal is going to be easier to kind of get the clients and kind of build from there?
Yeah. So in the summer associate position, I was doing civil litigation. That's where I started off doing my car accidents, personal injury, dog bite cases. And switching over to running my own practice, I knew I did not have the finances to uh, take on those type of cases by myself. But I knew as far as criminal cases, I could handle that without the extensive overhead that would be required to have money to hire experts for the personal injury cases. So that's why I started with the criminal representation and eventually grew the practice to then start back with the personal injury.
Okay, okay. And as you were coming up with your own practice, what do you think was maybe some of those? I guess maybe two questions. What do you think was some of those early breaks that you got to maybe kind of had yourself? Because again, starting law practice, I like starting your own business, and we know that a lot of the businesses, small businesses, whatever they end up going under or they don't succeed for one reason or another, and not to mention having tough times and dark days. So, what were some of those early wins that allowed you to kind of keep pushing and say, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can not only be good at practicing law, but again, building a business, which I think that's a separate thing from practicing law. Uh, so what were some of them early wins that kind of gave you that confidence to say, okay, yeah, I can keep going, I can do this, and keep building the practice?
I think for me, early on, helping out lower income individuals who found themselves in situations that could have changed their lives over a number of them, small, simple, silly decisions that could have put their life on a totally different path. But for me to be able to step in and get a good resolution for them, keep convictions off their records, that's something that resonated within me to make me feel like this was more of my calling. Now, as far as with the business, I think for me, for me, just having a hustle inside of me, knowing that I didn't really care about others' opinions. So understand when I first started practicing law, when I passed the bar exam, I still was working at the Home Depot.
Yeah. Wow.
So I worked at Home Depot ever since pretty much high school. So I was working at Home Depot throughout my undergrad and throughout my law school. So once I started practicing law, I still was working at Home Depot. So in the early days, I would be at Home Depot at 5 in the morning selling toilets and water heaters. Come 8 o'clock, I leave, go home, put on a suit, go to court for a couple hours, and go home, switch up again, and be back at Home Depot that afternoon.
For real?
So yeah, I did that. I did that for probably about my first year in practice. So I made sure I kept money coming in while I was building up the firm. And again, it wasn't one where I didn't take on the attitude of I'm a lawyer, so I'm not going to be out here
Right.
working here at Home Depot and selling these products. So I knew I had a mission.
So have you ever, like clients or whatever, people you dealt with on the legal side, did they ever come into Home Depot and like,
They
oh,
did.
this,
They did.
how was
They
that
did.
experience? Cause that'd be,
So
I don't know if I want my, I want to see my attorney working at Home Depot.
I get it. I do understand, but hey, at this point, they recognize the hustle of the fella. Again, I didn't sugarcoat it. Hey, I'm new, so I'm building my practice. So
Gotcha.
hey, it is what it is. I can't fake it with you. So hey, I know the law and I know about these toilets. So,
Hey, and do you think, I mean, it seems like, especially dealing with the maybe some lower income, they were, I would imagine that a lot more willing to take that, I don't say risk or chance, but say, okay, I'm cool, especially if you kind of showing the love on the price.
right.
Okay, no, and that makes sense. So you said you did that for the first year. So then I would imagine that that's probably was that like part of the dark days early on, having to do both Home Depot and law and seeing clients seeing you selling toilets or radiator furnaces at Home Depot, or was it like no, it was other like early on, I won't say dark days, but times where you like, man, I'm glad I'm past those.
I would say it'd be, yeah, I'm glad I'm past those, but I didn't view those as dark days. And I still don't view those as dark days to this day because again, it was just a journey. So I wasn't embarrassed of it. So uh hey, and you would nothing somebody could have said to me to make me embarrassed of it. Cause again, I saw the future.
Right.
So I would rather done that than to run myself into debt pretending that I was already successful. So, like I said, I didn't run off going to get office space because I recognize that as being overhead and debt. So, um, I know why I was wise enough to know, hey, get the money flowing in first before you start incurring debt.
No, and that made perfect sense. I actually had put up a tweet and a post yesterday that's saying, "Hey, uh, talking about breaking generational curses, and you think that you're going to be exempt from the pain and the hardship that just come along with the journey, but you got to keep going." So I seem like that's kind of a similar thing where you're saying, "Hey, man, I'm trying to do something big. That's just a part of the journey, going through or these different hardship moments or these different I won't say painful moments, but these moments that." It's trying times as I'm coming up, but just having to keep going. The family they uh relying on you to keep going. So I thought that was feel like that's a similar thing that you were saying. So early on, you having those cases. What were some of those like just crazy cases that you had early on? I know we were talking about the Toeb case and kind of have you flesh out that, but aside from that, what were some of those earlier cases, especially because, and I'm not gonna lie, I always tell people this. Initially, when I was enrolling into Michigan State, I mean, obviously a part of me wanting to go to law school was you telling me about your cases. And I was always tell people looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, man, the cases sound interesting. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do, law school. And, because as a football player, hey, I'm like most athletes, we gonna focus on football and figure this academic stuff out later. But just having you and you telling me about your cases and you being an attorney, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to law school and be an attorney. Because these cases sound interesting, but kind of looking back on it, it was because criminals always doing something stupid. So I guess I would imagine that you have a number of like just crazy cases that you've experienced as a criminal attorney. What are, I guess, some that, or at least one that you can share with us that you like, man, this is one of the, this is one of the more crazier cases that I've had and dealt with.
Man, it's so many that comes to mind. So it's hard to say one that's the most craziest, but I can say I can visualize one in which my client had an issue with officers in the city of Lansing continuing to arrest minorities for marijuana. And this was long before marijuana was legal. So we're going back to possibly 2007 or so. And this individual, who is not a minority, went into a city council meeting and signed up to speak. And once it was his turn to speak, he stood up to the podium and then proceeded to make his way past the stop into the gallery where the city council people sit at, and started throwing marijuana on the council members and said, "I'm tired of you effing with my fellow N-words."
For real? Oh,
And security came, in which case he took his stance and started swinging, punching, boxing with security until they was able to tackle him. We fought that case on throughout trial because he was adamant that a record need to be made that the city is continuing to target minorities over marijuana, and they do not go to non-minority neighborhoods and target them the same. So at sentencing, and again, not to skip too far past, but at sentencing, the client continued to speak out in front of the jurors. He was a constant disruption, irritating the judge. He gets found guilty. At sentencing, the judge ordered him to serve 18 months in prison. My client looked at the judge square in the eyes and said, 18 months? I'd just be starting to get adjusted in 18 months. How about you give me 10 years? She says, now you're getting 28 months. He say, okay, how about you make it 7 years? She say, you don't tell me what to do. So he gets the 28 months, and I go on with my practice. And roughly, I'm going to say 5 to 7 years later, I get a letter in the mail from him saying the Michigan Department of Corrections is attempting to evict him from his housing without giving him the services and resources that he needs to survive in the outside world. And I recognize they're trying to parole him, and he don't want to be paroled.
for real?
He want to stay in prison. So, but they released him from prison saying, no, you got to go out in the free world. So that's one of the craziest ones. He wanted to go to prison. He argued with the judge because she didn't give him enough time in prison. And when they were trying to parole him, he wanted me to do something to make the Department of Correction keep him in prison.
Man, hold on. I got a number of questions for this one. First, did he say the N with the ER or the A?
Oh, he put the ER. He put
I'm not sure if black people or minorities, do we want to feel good that somebody's sticking up for us, or do we want to feel offended by this?
So, and again, this fella, toothpick that was roughly 6'7". Yeah, it was interesting. All caught on camera.
So what they end up charging him with, because it seemed like 18 months based on what he doing, throwing marijuana on council members and just kind of just being a disruption at every point. 18 months seemed like a bargain.
Well, again, he got charged with the marijuana
Okay.
because again that public disruption was some misdemeanors.
Oh, okay.
So so yeah.
It seemed like he had. Do you think he had some mental stuff going on too? It seemed like this guy was mental based on what you saying.
Some mental, but not to the point where he didn't understand what the process was and what was going on. He
Right.
understood his consequences, but that was just more one of those signs where in our criminal justice system, they moved away from giving services to the individuals who had mental problems to just locking them up. So the mental health went away with our criminal justice system some time ago.
Okay.
So he fell into that category.
And that made perfect sense. Yeah, just not getting that help that they deserve. Huh. So then, okay, fast forward, and for attorneys will understand the importance of this, or the just what this means when you get a chance. Because a lot of times attorneys, they go their whole career not being able to argue in front of, or at least trial attorneys or whatnot, argue in front of the Supreme Court, whether it's the Supreme Court of the United States, but also the highest court in that particular state. Whether it's state of Michigan, state of Ohio, New York, whatever the case may be. It's not that you can be practicing, from my understanding, your whole career, 20 plus years, and is no guarantee that you're going to be able to argue in front of that highest court in the land. And so with this Toeb case, this was an interesting case because it made it up to the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan, Supreme Court of Michigan. Can you maybe at least kind of talk initially about the facts of that case and how kind of things continue to progress after, what would it be, like the district court ruling or the circuit court ruling?
So, yep, in that particular case, my client was pulled over by police officers because they said that he had a tow ball on his bumper, and that tow ball prevented them from reading all of the letters on his license plate. So I argued that that was an improper stop. And in that particular case, I argued that at circuit court, I argued at district court. District court didn't agree with me. We went over to circuit court. I made the argument again that circuit court judge, they did not agree with me, and I appealed it to the Court of Appeals. And what I did was what's called an interlocutory appeal, where I asked the circuit court trial judge to pause our proceedings at trial court and allow the Court of Appeals to address this situation as to whether or not there was a lawful action on the officers to pull this individual over. Because what it was, the officers said, they testified that when they saw the vehicle ride past, they started following it, and because of the tow ball, they could not make out one of the digits on his license plate. And the way that they ran the digit, it came back. They said where they viewed it, it could have been one of two digits. In the way they ran it, it came back registered to a vehicle that didn't match the description of the vehicle the plate was on. My issue was the officer never ran it the other way. So if they would have ran it the other option that they thought it could have been, it would have came back matching my client's vehicle. But they didn't bother doing it. And they initiated a traffic stop on my client, and he had a significant amount of drugs in the vehicle at the time. So much so his recommended guideline range off of the drugs that he had in there was in the neighborhood of 17 to 40 years in prison.
Wow.
So what it was, so we argued that up to the Michigan Court of Appeals, and the Michigan Court of Appeals ruled in our favor and said that the officers should not have searched the vehicle.
What made you do the interlocutory appeals? an appeal? Because it seemed like that was strategic on your part as opposed to letting this play out. So I guess what was giving you like, hold on, let's kind of put a pause on this and go to the Court of Appeals as opposed to continue to let this play out in circuit court?
Well, because I really felt like the circuit court judge got it wrong. Even so much so, as I pointed out to the circuit court judge, the same tow ball that my client had on back of his truck, the then prosecutor in Muskegon had on back of his truck. I went and took a picture of the then prosecutor, Tony Tagg, his truck. He had the same tow ball right in front of his license plate on his truck. And as I'm telling them, this is a common thing. So I recognized this was just going to be another tool that officers were going to use to pull over individuals.
Yep.
And they're going to selectively choose who they pulled over. And as I talked with officers in this particular case, they admit that they have seen numerous individuals with these tow balls on their trucks, and they couldn't pinpoint to one that they had pulled over and ticketed for it.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So then it gets to so it's the Court of Appeals, they rule, and does I'm assuming that the
Prosecutor.
prosecutor end up appealing it to the Supreme Court of Michigan.
Right. And so at that time, what it is once you get up to the Supreme Court, you have to send in a brief to them asking them to look at your situation, look at this case. And as you said in your lead in, very few criminal cases make it all the way up to the Supreme Court because they get to pick and decide what issues they feel needs to be addressed. And this was one where they said, yeah, we think we need to speak on this. So they invited me to submit my brief on the issue, and then gave us opportunity and time to go before them and argue our cases.
So how many, and I'm not sure if you know offhand, how many cases do they get, the Supreme Court of Michigan get a year, and how many cases do they select out of that total number? Do you know offhand?
I do not know offhand.
Okay. Oh yeah, I would imagine that it has to be a crazy number of cases that they get, and I'm like I said, they selecting a handful of cases that they think they need to take a closer look at.
Right.
When I was in law school, when I had an advocacy class, we had a professor, our professor for the advocacy class. He just did, I think it's Gentry was his name. He just did appeal cases or appellate cases.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess where I'm going with this is it common, like say, for you to just take it all the way up to that point to the Supreme Court of Michigan, or is it typical where they maybe get another attorney at the appeal level or at the Supreme Court level? I would imagine, I call myself attorney in title because on the IP side, the patent side, you're not dealing with the different courts. We know district court, which is, patents is all federal. So you got district court, then you have Court of Appeals, and then you got the Supreme Court. So you're not dealing with circuit court, district court, state courts. So you're not dealing with state courts. It's all federal at the patent level. But much like I would imagine the state court, where you have, if you argue in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, typically I would imagine that one of the parties want to get maybe a court who has argued in front of the Supreme Court a number of times, so that they can maybe get a little bit more favor, or kind of know what to expect, to increase their chances, the likelihood that they come out successful. Was that ever a thought in your case, or was it like, no, I know I was going to kind of argue this thing from the beginning to the end, regardless of where we at in the process?
Nope, that was not one that I just thought. Because again, my mind frame was like what you said. Hey, move forward and get a appeals attorney who can file this interlocutory appeal and move on. But my client was one who was adamant that I trust you, so I want you to do it. So I want to deal with nobody else. This is my life on the line. I trust that you was going to get us up to par and get us there. So even when it came time for the Supreme Court, I contemplated, okay, do I just get somebody else to do the argument? And so, but after discussions, it was no, it would be best because this was more of an opportunity of a lifetime to just go in and just take it on. And it was a great experience.
And I was going to say, how was that experience being able to give arguments in front of the judges of the Supreme Court? How was that? And then, okay, you have the outcome, and how does the practice change as a result of that? As far as does the numbers change? Does the influx of cases come in? Like, what did you see a tangible change after that? Arguing in front of the Supreme Court in your practice?
I did, because after that, that case made statewide news for sure. And I saw a change in the fact that I'm one who traveled throughout the state of Michigan, and I was finding myself in counties that I was unfamiliar with, but the prosecutors there were familiar with me because of this particular case. So it switched it up for me because individuals understood that I would fight for my clients. So if I don't get a ruling that I feel is justified, you're going to have to deal with me. I'm going to be that pest of a person who's going to keep coming back fight. That opponent who keep getting knocked down and getting back up fight until you get worn out. So yeah, I saw a change. So it created a very positive change for the practice.
And that's interesting as well, because I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. But as a district attorney, you don't want to. One of the things is, okay, I'm imagining the way they kind of give their settlements or whatever you guys call them on in part is based on the likelihood that this person is going to go to trial and kind of be a pain. And I'm assuming that you got a little bit more favorable maybe
plea offers.
There you go, plea offers as a result of they knowing, okay, he gonna take it all the way if we don't give him what he like.
Right, most definitely, because again, it's one where prosecutors, they look and say, I don't really got to offer him anything because that person not going to go to trial anyway. So, but when you become someone who's known to take a matter to trial and not just coming in looking for a plea, your offers get better. Right. So I'm not going to get the same offer as somebody else who they know there's no chance that that person actually going to take their case to trial. They'll drop their claim before they take their case to trial. So our two officers are not going to be the same on a case.
No, that's perfect sense. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. No, that's crazy. So then you got the Toeb case. At what part, I guess, from a branding situation, in terms of kind of even bringing it back to the intellectual property perspective or part of it, at what part did you kind of take a branding series? I know you talked earlier about, even when I took the bar, as I was waiting for the bar results, I had cards and stuff like that waiting to give out. Once I got those bar results, when you go to different cities across the state of Michigan, you got billboards up, you got posters inside the fish fry places, you got posters inside the barber shops and different places, so that you can get your name out there, get the brand out there. And then obviously most recently when we talk about just securing a few different trademarks, at what point did you start, and I got to really think about branding, which is one thing, at least in my opinion, to say, okay, I'm an attorney and I'm going to do the bare minimum as it relates to branding or marketing, I should say. But then it's when you say, oh, no, I want to look at myself as actual brands. So when you think of, what's the guy, the Sam Bernstein's, man, I would imagine that he get a lot of his cases just because of the brand of Sam Bernstein, regardless of whether or not he a good or a bad attorney, or that was a good or bad attorney. But people, they see that brand so much that they like, okay, I'm gonna call Sam Bernstein or whatever the case may be. So I guess when did that become like, okay, this is very important, as opposed to just another thing I need to do for marketing and advertising to try to get clients?
I can't say exactly when, but I recognize the value in it. So I wanted to brand myself as the people's attorney. I wanted to be that go-to person. So I'm the one-stop shop. If it's not something I can do, I'm gonna put you in place with and in touch with the right person who can do it. And I recognize that in the communities that I mainly serve, a lot of individuals don't have someone that they can call and talk to. So unlike uh, some other groups of individuals who can say, hey, I can run this past this person, run this past that person, a lot of the people who I serve don't have that. So they don't meet an attorney until they're in need. They
Right.
don't know someone who they socially can call and answer their calls or return their calls, and they can ask a question. So, and one case that stands out to me was a lady called pretty irate that her deceased boyfriend's wife had came and took the deceased boyfriend's car from her house. And she was ready to go to the wife's house and take that car back. And I'm dealing with someone who was in their 70s. And I had to say, ma'am, that's that woman's husband's car. So unless he had a wheel directing that vehicle to you or your name was on that title, that's her car.
Right.
So I actually had to take time and talk to that lady, and I I felt good about it
Right.
because she called me before she got into any trouble because I marketed myself as the people's attorney. So I'm your mouthpiece. Reach out to me. If it's something that I need to speak up on your behalf about, I'll do it. So she was able to call and run this situation past me, and I was able to diffuse that situation. So when going off of those type of situations, I'm more so just incorporated more of the branding because I started off as looking to make myself the people's person, and then I more so started focusing on the brand. And I think I more started looking at the brand more closer after talking with you. Once you started in the IP world and you start speaking about how important it is to brand yourself, and you share different stories of individuals not branding and another company coming along taking it and somebody trying to go back and say, no, that was mine. So then that's when I started realizing more so the importance of getting the paperwork behind your brand.
Right. So then where does and that's and that's exactly right. And I know what the I was going to ask where did the famous phrase "don't talk, call your mouthpiece" come from? But just say for example, even with that, you got the trademark on that. So if at some point you're like, okay, I'm kind of done with this law stuff, man, you still got an asset that's worth money that you can potentially sell at that point if you want to. And I guess I don't think the attorneys think about it from that standpoint, where it's like, okay, I have something because this is not tied to your name or whatever. This is just don't talk, call your mouthpiece, regardless of where the attorney is. They can use that from a branding perspective, but obviously they have to kind of deal with you and, okay, let me try to acquire this mark from him, which would cost money, and that IP is valued at something. So yeah, I mean, I think this stuff is important, but I guess going back to that question, when did that famous saying, okay, don't talk, call your mouthpiece, when did that come to you? You like, okay, that's gonna be the one that I'm a really protect in terms of a trademark.
These I started off getting billboards. I started off um buying billboard space, and I was not getting a return on those billboards. And I remember some years back, I was at a Christmas party for Vin Johnson. Vin Johnson operates a plaintiff's firm throughout Michigan, centrally based out of the Detroit area. So I was at his Christmas party, and I was talking to his marketing director, and I was telling him, the problems I'm having, not getting a return on my investment with these billboards. And so he asked me, okay, what's on your billboards? And so I'm telling him, he says, so your billboard just saying, call me because I'm black? Like, what is it? I don't get it. Like, you don't have a real message on your billboard. And then his message on his billboards is then fights. And he has red boxing gloves. So that's his image. That's his brand. So that really just made me start thinking. So then that's when I came up with the don't talk, call your mouthpiece. Because again, in a number of situations, by the time I was getting hired on a case, my client had already made a confession or started trying to talk their way out of a situation and put themselves in a deeper hole. Because at this point, individuals don't realize when officers are talking to you after a situation take place, they're not talking to you to be your friend. Right. They're talking to you to lock you into a story. So then once I come along, we already locked into a box.
Right. And that's funny. I forget what the TV shows is. I know I would watch something recently, and they were saying how, hey, they know when they done brought you that Sprite and them chips at McDonald's. So you told them everybody.
And look, as soon as you see him ask for, can I get a Newport? As soon as you ask for that cigarette, you're like, oh man. He's something about that Newport that get them when that mouth start talking.
That's what they said. Yeah, they said the Newport was one of them. Like, man, when they get that Newport too, they didn't told on somebody.
Told on somebody or told on themselves.
On themselves.
And the other, like, man, let me just tell you what happened.
So, that's hilarious. So yeah. Did you, once you started to put that that phrase on there, that message on there, did you see an uptick in the calls compared to what you had before?
I did. It was a drastic turnaround.
Wow.
And so then I pushed the brand so much that it's times where individuals call and don't even know my name. They just say, I want to talk to the mouthpiece. Most recently, I went to a doctor's appointment and the nurse who came in and said, hey, she said, we know each other, don't we? I said, I don't think so. No, she like, I know you. So she started naming different people. Do you know this person, that person? No. She like, I know you. Like, I know you know you. Like, she said it, like, I feel like we friends. So she said, hold on. Do you get your poster board up at the such and such restaurant? Like, yeah. She said, I look at your picture so much, I thought we were friends.
Every time I'm in here, you in here. We friends practically at this point.
Right. So, but again, so that's just putting the image out there, putting the brand out there. So it really sticks with people and it's paid off.
No, and that, man, like I said, regardless of, I think we all are brands, whether you are working at McDonald's, whether you are at the plant at one of the big three, whether you're an attorney, a doctor, we all have a brand. It just, what's associated with your brand, especially, in social media has really changed the game with that because you posting every day. What are you posting? And, that becomes a part of your brand. Is you this person that always posting BS? Or you just person that always posting comedy stuff? Or you just person that's always talking financial literacy or uplifting stuff? Or you just a jokester? Like, all that becomes a part of your brand. And people I think they take that for granted. But, man, I have ran into a number of people when I'm coming back home to Muskegon or just I'm out and people like, man, hey, keep doing your thing, man. I ain't seen this person in years, but that's what they seeing on social media. They seeing the real estate, they seeing the charge station stuff, they seeing the podcast, they seeing the IP stuff. So they like, okay, his brand is associated with winning, success. And every time I see him, I know, man, hey, keep doing your thing. I'm proud of you. And they ain't seen me or talked to me in years. So that's just the power of the brand and being able to really control the narrative of your brand. And I just think a lot of people take that for granted.
Right.
That can definitely play a role and kind of get you to the next level. So that's cool that it worked out. Do you have any other plans going forward as it relates to the brands? I know you got another trademark on the logo, so you kind of getting up the IP game, and I know we talked about making sure you kind of uh displaying it the right way so that
Right.
you are covered there. But do you have other plans for the I know you're doing personal injury in addition to as well as family law in addition to the criminal justice. I know some people call you the black Sam Bernstein out here with the
Right.
injury with the accidents and stuff like that being taken on those cases. But so do you have other plans with like branding and IP trademarks, whatever the case may be going forward?
None on the horizon is, as you said, what's been secured, putting effort and energy and just continuing to push that and getting that out. So again, with the goal for it to ideally become the nationwide brand.
Yeah.
So, so individuals know, hey, wherever they're at, hey, they run into a situation, call your mouthpiece, and we're gonna figure it out for you.
Yep, exactly. Even, you think about what's your boy Johnny Cochran with the OJ trial and how that kind of parlayed into he got, law firms in different countries. I mean, not different countries, but different states. That's one
Right.
of the things that people don't know as a law firm. And you can purchase a law firm in a different state or whatever the case may be. It could be under that brand or that leadership. So it's a number of ways you can go about it. But no, that's definitely big to be looked at as a nationwide brand, not even just in the state of Michigan or in the Midwest, but a mouthpiece, that's a nationwide thing. And that trademark gives you nationwide protection over that. So
Right.
no attorney in the country can say don't call your mouthpiece. So now we're not even talking about just a Michigan thing, but if somebody else wanted
Right.
to buy that from you in another state or use that, they got to either get a license deal from you or they can, I guess, look to potentially buy it from you. But you own that brand, you have the IP to that brand, which is definitely a valuable asset. So
Right. And we
uh,
most definitely we're gonna grow this to the point where just like these various situations come about and you see Benjamin Crump
yep.
represent a number of people, it's gonna come a time where it's gonna be the mouthpiece flying from this state to that state because of this or that situation happening. And that's
Oh,
the game.
Oh, that's big right there. So I know we coming up on 47 minutes. Well, we have 47 minutes coming up on an hour. I guess the last thing out there I wanted to talk to you about before I get your kind of final thoughts or just final words to leave out the audience with is this P Diddy thing, man. We were talking about it offline a little bit, and I know you were schooling me on some stuff as far as I'm like, hold on, man, he hasn't been with Cassie in a long time. Well, all of a sudden, this seemed to come out of nowhere, but you had kind of put me up on game on some stuff. So can you kind of talk a little bit about at least what you know about that case? I know stuff's still coming out. He hasn't even responded to her complaint or answer,
Right.
responded to her complaint. But as far as the stuff that you know about New York and kind of what's going on in New York as it relates to sexual assault and stuff like that, can you kind of talk a little bit about this situation?
Yep. So back in November 2022 now, November 24th, 2022, New York passed what they call the Adult Survivors Act. So that allowed individuals 1 year to bring forth a civil case against an individual person or employer for their sexual misconduct that took place at any point in time in their life. So an individual could go back 20, 30, 40 years and say, this person did this to me, and I want to be financially compensated for that. And that once that happened, that opened up a floodgate. If we was to look back, we'll see that Bill Cosby got sued in New York civilly. Donald Trump got sued in New York civilly. And those were just the big names that we have, that we recognize.
Right.
So countless individuals in New York face civil lawsuits because of this change in laws. And so what we have now here in this situation with P. Diddy is we're days away from that 1 year deadline, and this lawsuit has been filed against him. And the difference is this is civil, so this is not criminal. In criminal, the individual got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what's being alleged actually happened. In civil, it's a preponderance of the evidence. So in a civil case, all it takes is for a feather to tip the scales of justice, the slightest amount, and she wins. So in this case, it's a bunch of speculation. P. Diddy camp is saying that she requested $30 million to not write a book that was going to be a little negative, that was going to contain negative information about their relationship. Her camp is saying that Diddy offered 8 figures for her not to come forward, but she wanted to expose him. So it's going to be one where it's really going to depend on whether or not she has witnesses, messages, and other evidence to present. Because again, she's making some serious allegations.
Yes, definitely some very serious allegations. And she claimed that she got witnesses or other people were present at the time these different activities or events took
took place. Yeah, and it's about whether or not they're going to come forward. But again, they're going to be subject to depositions, to being placed under oath.
Yep.
And it's a lot of money on the line. So whether or not those individuals want to take the lumps of not testifying or not telling the truth.
Right. Yeah, because I would imagine, Diddy, he's still a part player within the music industry and the entertainment industry. So you figure, you going against somebody like that, or he's taking a stand against somebody like that, and potentially costing them tens of millions of dollars. I would imagine that.
And we gonna say hundreds of millions, because Diddy, he's making roughly $90 million a year, primarily off his alcohol sales.
Right, and I had to look up that because I thought Ciroc dropped him recently. I told him he's no longer part of that brand, so I'm not sure if he's kind of even making that much these days. But I would imagine that he's still well off and doing different things that's generating income or revenue. So he still got a pretty penny behind him. But
right,
yeah, man, I would imagine that this can definitely affect him, and not only that, but just the reputation. You're talking about future deals at that point. Do people want to kind of deal with you it's one thing to be alleged or somebody saying that, but to be found guilty of it in the court of law is one thing to settle out and then never go to court, and now you don't got to deal with, okay, yeah, he was found guilty of it, but I guess I shouldn't say found guilty in a civil case, but if what is it called in the civilly if you lose a case or the jury don't win it your favor, is that still found guilty of it?
Right. So, again, they're going to find in her favor against him. So He's not a guilty innocent, but he's responsible.
Yeah.
So,
but just being on the hook, even though it's a civil case, just being on the hook for responsibility, I would imagine that can hurt you. I know back when OJ, he was found not guilty in the criminal trial, but I think he was held liable or responsible civilly. Which I'm assuming that hurt his reputation as far as being able to do different things. He's still going to
hurt his brand.
His brand, I know he's doing a lot in broadcasting. It's like just overall brand. So yeah, I would imagine that being held responsible or found liable for it can hurt his brand going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that play out. So no, y'all know, man, we talked about a lot of good things. Is it anything you want to leave the audience with as relates to whether it's criminal or just again, building a brand or whatever the case may be, some words of wisdom for the audience or those who will be tuning into this interview?
I think just the most important thing is like what we touched on is your brand. So whether it's you running your car wash, you selling clothes, you doing hair, you doing nails, you providing a service or a product, is most important for you to protect your brand and to do what you got to do to make sure your brand keeps a solid name for itself. So as we just talked about with P Diddy, with OJ, some of the some of anything can come forward and damage your brand, and your brand is you. So that's why it's one important to protect it, and it's one second it's important to keep it up. So I think that's the biggest thing for the viewers to take away from this.
No, and I definitely agree with you on that 100%. I think I definitely agree with you on that. So if someone wanted to follow you, do you have social media out there, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram? Where could people follow Attorney Michael Oakes and what all you have going on, especially with regards to the legal side of things?
Yep. So most definitely. So far as with the Instagram, Facebook is your mouthpiece is the tagline. And again, we represent clients throughout the state of Michigan, whether it be personal injury or criminal cases. And we also have a family law practice. So again, it's the best stop. As I said, I'm a one-stop shop. So best bet is to just call with whatever your situation is, and we look to pair you off with the right attorney if we don't have that person in-house.
Got you. And then do you have I guess a website or anything that they can check out if they also wanted to retain you or look to retain you for your services?
Yep, we found it at www.oakslawgroup.com.
Okay. I'll definitely put that in the description once the video drops. Again, definitely appreciate you for coming on, sharing some words of wisdom, talking about building up your practice and protecting your brand, taking your brand to the next level. Definitely appreciate that. I think you dropped some jewels for sure that the audience can take and apply it and hopefully, have some success as well. And I guess I'll leave the audience out on don't talk, call your mouthpiece.